Welcome back to another episode of the Saturdays in Stores podcast, which you can find right here on the Court Store Media Network, formerly known as the Crossover Channel. Of course, we underwent a rebrand, so definitely let other people know who are watchers of the channel that we're now the Court Storm. But on today's episode, I want to break down the commitment that UConn landed from four-star wing Colben Landrew, native of Georgia, and top 20 to 25 player, depending on what service you use for high school rankings. He's committed to UConn. Today, and Hurley come to play in STORRS, Connecticut next season following this one. Definitely a good get, I think. Important building block piece. When you pair that with Junior County, who was the first commitment in the 2026 recruiting cycle for UConn so far. But I'm going to break down all of that in this episode today. But before we get into that, if you like this podcast or anything else you see on the Court Storm channel, please engage our videos in any way you can, whether it's liking, subscribing to the channel, or telling other people about us. It goes a long way with growing what we do here at the Court Storm. So let's get right into it. Colben Landrew, four-star wing, 6'6", I believe around 205 pounds, so really solid frame. I think he was listed with a 6'10" wingspan as well. He did end up choosing UConn over other schools like Louisville, Purdue, Mississippi State, Texas A&M. 24/7 Sports has him as the number 28 overall recruit in this cycle. And overall, I think that it was a good get. This was a player that a lot of people are really high on and really wanted. I know Pat Kelsey at Louisville was making a major run to try to get him, obviously trying to live up to himself proclaiming Louisville becoming the new point guard U between Chucky Hepburn last year and now Michael Brown Jr. this year. We'll see how he ends up playing for the Cards this year. But overall, I like Landry's game a lot. He plays physical. He likes getting downhill towards the cup and being able to elevate, finish around the rim. Not most athletic. I have seen people in a way compare him to Andre Jackson, not necessarily in terms of style, but in terms of the impact he could end up having, where just a guy that doesn't necessarily need the ball to really impact the game. He's a guy who can go out and get you 10 assists on any given night, play defense, guard the other team's best player, get you 20 points when you need him to. And I think from what I saw out of his AU circuit tape, along with some of his high school tape, he definitely has a knack for being able to spot up shoot. He shot a lot of spot up threes, was able to hit them at a pretty high clip, along with being able to, like I said, really just attack the rim in transition, just being able to get up. Again, he's not really throwing down any flashy, crazy highlight reel dunks, but he's making solid, tough finishes on both sides of the hoop, I should add, left and right. And I think he just plays the game really smart. He should be able to play multiple positions, probably 1 through small ball 4, if we're being completely honest. And I do think that there's potential for lineups next year where Colben Landrews could be starting at small ball 4, and we'll see what ends up happening with that. Of course, a lot of things are dependent on who UConn retains following this season. But overall, he could have gone to an SEC school, of course, being from Georgia. I think he lived in Alabama at one point. And I do think that early on, Alabama and Auburn were both in the race for him, but he honestly kind of turned his eyes more so east and is now obviously ending up with UConn. And I just think that he really believes in what UConn has done as a program over the last couple seasons, where, of course, the back-to-back national championships definitely helps in your recruiting pitches. He came out and said that he saw how Dan Hurley runs his practices and how hard he pushes guys and how he felt that he could really develop and become a good player at UConn, and how he really believes that he's going to be able to come here and help UConn win another national championship, which is, of course, everything you want to hear out of a commit that UConn is getting. I think that when you pair him with Junior County, I mean, that could be your backcourt of the future right there, with County potentially playing the 1, Landrew at the 2, or, Landrew could definitely play the 3, the 4 as well. I think that both are going to be able to defend at a pretty high level. I think both play physical and, are of our larger stature, which both aspects help a lot when you're playing the Big East. And I just think that's kind of the approach that Dan Hurley takes with his recruits. He tries to target the mid to high 4-stars, some borderline 5-stars who he knows probably aren't going to be one and done or have plans to be one and done, but guys he knows he's going to be able to get back for 2, maybe 3 years even, and develop them over the course of that time. And I just think that really is the recipe for how you construct your rosters nowadays, with between the transfer portal and, bringing in 5-star freshmen who are going to go one and done and be lottery picks in the NBA draft. It's so hard to have retention of culture and just knowledge of what to do on the game floor and how to execute offense and defensive schemes to the likings of a head coach and a coaching staff. And I think just having the continuity is definitely something that's kind of being forgotten and kind of starting to become somewhat obsolete in today's game with how much coaches turn to the transfer portal and recruiting 5-star freshmen as they always have. I think that having guys that are, one, really talented players and do have pro potential, but two, are going to be in stores for 2, 3, maybe even 4 years if you get 4 years out of them. I just think that's a really good recipe. It speaks to the culture that Dan Hurley's built here at UConn and how he runs his program. And just having continuity is so important. Just look at what you have with Alex Caravan right now, Solo Ball, Jalen Stewart, Jaden Ross. I mean, specifically Stewart and Ross, two guys that are really talented, could have transferred out twice now to go to programs where they definitely could be starting at or play high volume of minutes. They've chosen to stick it out at UConn. Now they're going to be really, really crucial bench pieces, or who knows, maybe starters at some point in the year for this upcoming season for the Huskies. But overall, I like Landry's a lot. I think this was a really good get. I am kind of curious to see how now the decisions of both Junior County and Colben Landrew to commit to UConn impacts the decision that we see out of Dylan Mingo, where, again, number one point guard in the class, definitely a guy who UConn wants a lot, or who knows, maybe now not as much considering they landed two kind of wing/forward guards here. Granted, I do believe that Colben Landrews and Junior County are more so off the ball type of guards and wings. So Dylan Mingo is a true point guard, and he might still be someone that is heavily considering UConn. But let me tell you, they land Dylan Mingo, this is going to be a really, really stacked recruiting class. I just watch out for the Huskies in the coming years because it could get scary for the rest of the country with some of the guys they're bringing in. And of course, you couple that with what Dan Hurley could potentially pluck out of the transfer portal and who you might be getting back next year that's on the team currently. UConn could be in a really good position to compete for another national championship next year. But overall, really excited to get Colben Landrews. Really, I just want to welcome him to the UConn Nation. And just quick side note, I did put out a reaction to UConn's exhibition game against Boston College this past Monday night today on the channel. So definitely check that out if you haven't already. But I think that pretty much takes care of everything I have on the Colben Landrews commitment. Again, really happy with this get. I think between him and Junior County, really great building blocks to build forward with for the roster construction going into this following season. Of course, we do got really big time season coming up here right now in 25-26. So super excited for that. And until next episode, see you all next time.